Creed did enough to definitely show why like he was formidable, and I still think that the whole hype around him is a little bit capped. Not because like his power is bad, but because like just when Andy says like, oh, well, he's like he doesn't run out of ammo, so someone like me who's if I get caught in his attack, he's just gonna keep going. But I mean, at the same time, like literally all you have to do, you pull that card out of your head, it's over. Like it's GG. And on top of that, I still think Andy could just beat him in a lot of sense, like as long as he doesn't get caught. Like if you put them one on one against each other, if Andy just went for like one of his big attacks, then I really don't know what Creed would do. You definitely prove though that he's got way more skill and just general capability that that he's not he's not as weak as I kind of made him out to be. I wouldn't say weak, but like not really in the same tier as like a lot of the other characters around him. The only thing that I would say, like again, that I still think is when they're like, oh well, he's the most like tricky and difficult to deal with out of everybody on the enemy team. It's like I don't know. I would rather fight Creed than Rip. Like Rip's saying, like on top of the artifacts he has, he lands damage on you. You're not gonna heal. Like you put Andy against Rip, every single attack Rip lands is gonna keep doing damage. Like it's just gonna keep going. Like Andy's like they're not gonna do the same thing obviously to a normal person. Like Andy's just gonna keep fighting because he's not going to die, obviously be undead. But you can still get him to the point where like he's just going to be out of commission. He might not die, but he might not be able just to move. Like if you cut off enough of his limbs, you cause enough areas to bleed, so like his body can't function properly. There's just different ways that he can kind of screw him over. Whereas like even if Andy gets caught by something of Creed's, he could just figure a way to get out and then work around that. Because like bullets and stuff, they're not gonna do nearly as much damage as like again OP unhealing cuts and like whatever some of these other guys can do. I do still think that's a little bit cappish. Like for a comparison, this is easy for me. For Fairy Tail, during the Grand Magic Games, like for the people who haven't read or watched it, there's a character named Rufus, and he was a similar way, like he wasn't the strongest on his team, but he was like their heart, like the most difficult character to keep up during the point where they were like fighting in Sabretooth and stuff, because like his power was really OP. He could memorize other people's spells, combine spells he's memorized, and then cancel out spells that he's memorized from the people that initially used them. So it's like he just had a really unfair ability that made every situation he was in more difficult. Whereas like Creed, I do think that his power is good. Like it's one that really comes down to how he uses it rather than just it being good by itself, because anybody with like a crazy power should be able to out-hack him. It like we saw in this chapter, because in like Unmove, like Chikara was able just to kind of like lock him in place, but he was being smart. Like a lot of the areas, like he had a flashbang, and that was able to temporarily bind Chikara, and at that point, like he just kind of got his gun out and he just pointed it and then just started following Top and creating like a rough scenario for him where he's just kind of like getting to a point where these bullets are all getting closer and closer to him. But at the same time, he's like, while he's doing it, he's gathering a bunch of rubble and debris around him to pretty much build like a little bunker. So somebody like Top, who isn't a heavy hitter, but he's all speed and stuff, is like, he's pretty much going to be put into a position where it's like he can't do a whole lot of damage, because he's not going to be able to get past all of that debris nearly as easy as like if he's just standing there, or like someone like, Andy's obviously a good example, or like Shen, like they would just kind of say nope to any of these rubble, like it wouldn't be a problem. Whereas with Top, he has to go in and kick off pieces first. But that's why that's where Creed was planning, and he even took Chikara hostage, damaged his eyes, and at that point he was just putting Top into a spot where he was like really screwing him over. And now like with no way of halting his gunfire and all his weapons, Top was just on the run, not sure really how to entirely approach him. Like again, Creed is an example of how you can take a good power, again not a great power for the reasons I listed, really when you look at a lot of the powers in the series, like the ability to make your weapons never run out of ammo is good, But when you compare it to other powers in the series, you really look at what you could get. Like, they have stuff that, like, is conceptual. Like, stuff like, obviously, Undead, where you can't die because you are, like, you are void of the rule of people dying. And Unmove, like, I also would rather have Unmove. Like, Unmove's actually really good. Like, Chikara is, like, is amazing support. But also, if he had, like, a gun, he could beat a lot of people. Or a sword, or any way of just, like, hurting somebody while it's happening. Because, like, imagine if he just could shoot a gun at Creed, or, like, could throw a grenade, or walk up and stab somebody, and just lock them in place, and do their thing. And in this case, like, he's amazing at team up with Top. So I'm guessing the way that it's talking about in the chapter, that Top is, like, he's not just, like, outright fast, but the fact his power is called Unstoppable in the other chapter, like, he starts out, like, showing that he's having difficulty, like, tracking out bullets, but at the end, when Chikara's, like, locked Creed in place, still obviously really damaged, you have him, he's like, oh, well, I'm gonna have faith in my friend, until he reaches the speed of light. So, real big jump when you go from bullet speed to the speed of light, like an insane level of increase. So, that to me, like, when you look at those gaps and, like, the way that Top's doing it, he's doing some Flash style where he's going to go get a big set of distance and he's going to just bolt in and build up enough acceleration and momentum that he's going to just deck Creed with, like, an immense amount of force and just completely knock him on his ass and potentially kill him, I would imagine, if he's going to hit him with, like, some infinite mass punch style move. I will say, like, Chikara was really cool in this chapter, and especially last chapter too. Like, these two were both very good, and even Creed says, like, oh, you know, you're not the same coward that I saw on the boat. Like, it's weird that Creed, like, not Creed, Chikara has actually, like, a lot of really cool, improvement in this. Like, he has, like, a lot of really just good improvement, not only his capabilities, but his attitude and his boldness on the battlefield. I think that he's actually a really good side character that he introduced, a character I didn't think was going to stick around and get to this far point. So, good for him. Like, he's had some of these cooler panels. I really like this one, where, for the most part, it's a panel of him. Nothing crazy in the background. He's just damaged. He's opened his eyes after they got hurt. I wonder why Creed didn't just, like, gouge his eyes out entirely. Maybe he wanted to, like, keep that full hostage, and he was just kind of, like, going for at least enough that you can't see in the moment. But now they're putting in, like, everything in a spot for, like, a really big, crazy feat next chapter. But on top of that, I really want to see the art style that the manga is going to draw in Top going at this speed, like how he's going to look when he gets to the point where he wants to start from, and then just when he bolts, and as the speed picks up, that how it's just going to be depicted. I'm hoping for, like, a lot of speed lines. Not like the same as, like, not like Jujutsu Kaisen, one of these speed lines. I'm thinking of more of, like, how Fujimoto did it for the people who read Chainsaw Man. How he did it with Kianshi during that whole bit when she just raced through all of those doll devil minions and, like, those random devil hunters. Like, he just blitzed through everything. It was just a bunch of panels of her running by everyone, and then you see the aftermath. Because, again, I'm thinking of some Flash type move where Top bolts from a distance and you don't even see the shockwaves hit areas he's passed until afterwards. Not like he's running and everything's getting crazy next to him. It's just like runs, silence, kind of like that swordsman thing in anime where it's like there's a moment and then, like, you know, reach his sword and then moments later damage hits. I'm hoping that happens with his speed. But anyway, other than that, really solid chapter. Actually really like this one. This was definitely one of my favorites this week. And I really appreciate a comment below. Thumbs up the video, with the like button, subscribe button, and check out my videos. But that, appreciate everyone who's already subscribed, and thank you all for listening. Bye.